Hello, everybody, and welcome to Ice-Burgh To Go, your daily dose of Pittsburgh Penguins news and analysis. You can find us on YouTube at Inside the Penguins or anywhere you get your podcasts from. We've talked a lot this season already about the failures of the bottom six. We've talked some about the success of the top six, the star players for the Pittsburgh Penguins once again carrying the load, and for good reason. Those have been the main storylines as the season has gone along. But the one thing we haven't addressed is something that was a main story heading into the offseason, kind of faded into the back during the summer, and has kind of faded into the back to this point as well. I know a couple of people have mentioned it, a couple of people have brought it up, but that's the goaltending. We're 2 weeks into the season and haven't really done a deep dive into what we've seen so far, primarily from Tristan Jarry, because Alex Nedeljkovic has only played in one game so far with the Pittsburgh Penguins. So let's start with Tristan Jarry, and we'll talk a little bit about Alex Nedeljkovic here at the end of this episode. But I've noticed that a lot of people are unhappy with Jarry's performance, and there's parts of his game that I've been unhappy with as well, because on the surface, it looks that way. You're 100% correct if you're unhappy with what you've seen from Tristan Jarry on the surface. Again, he's 1-3-0 on the season. That's not a good record. He has an .892 save percentage, which is far below the NHL's average. And he's allowed 4 goals in back-to-back starts now. That was against Detroit midweek last week, and that was against St. Louis over the weekend. Certainly not the numbers you want to see from a starting goaltender that you just gave a 5-year contract extension to that makes over $5 million against the salary cap every single season. However, when I look at his performance a little bit closer, when I go back and I watch those games, I do see a lot of positives, and I see a lot of growth from what we saw last year for Tristan Jarry. A lot of the goals that he's given up, specifically in the last 2 games, which are his 2 worst performances and the reason that his numbers are where they're at. A lot of the goals he's given up are due to horrendous breakdowns defensively in front of him. Let's walk through his 4 starts to this point of the season really quickly, because last year he was 4-0-1 to start the year. It was his best start out of the gates in his career, and it all crumbled. This year, 1-3-0, .892 save percentage. Let's walk through his first 4 starts. Season opener, opening night, against Chicago. He looked really good for the first 2 periods of play. He looked extremely good through the first 2 periods of play. Made a couple of big saves, made sure the Penguins were leading going into the 3rd period. And then when I look at both of those 3rd period goals, they came from similar areas. Right in the slot, directly to the left of Tristan Jarry, maybe like 80-degree angle from where Tristan Jarry is in the crease. But they were allowed into the slot, basically a free shot at Tristan Jarry. One of them was a one-timer that got to that position. That was the game winner on a completely lucky bounce for the Chicago Blackhawks. And the other one was a pass from behind the net right out to the slot, and nobody was there. So, yes, would you like to see him make one of those saves? Yeah, but at the same time, it's not a good place to be allowing a shot from. So, okay, those 2 goals in the 3rd period, you could put it on the defense, you could put it on Jarry, but at the end of the day, they're tough shots to save. You'd like him to save them, but they're tough shots to save. At Washington in his 2nd game, shutout, no notes, right? No notes. He shuts out the Washington Capitals on their season opener, and he made a couple of pretty big saves throughout that evening as well. So there you go, Washington. Let's get to last week then. At the Detroit Red Wings, as we've talked about, the 3rd pairing for the defense completely shut down. They did nothing to help out Tristan Jarry in that game, and it led to the majority of the goals that he allowed to the Detroit Red Wings. The first goal, Chad Ruhwedel gets a bad bounce. The Red Wings forward basically skates right around him, even though he tried to physically hit him. And then P.O. Joseph just doesn't play the pass, and it's an easy tap-in. That happened on several occasions in that game. That's on the defense. That's not on Tristan Jarry at that point. And let's not forget that once they went down 4-0, Tristan Jarry, despite the fact that, the forwards did their job, Tristan Jarry made the saves when he needed to, and he didn't allow another goal, and that's why they got back into that game at 4-3 until they pulled Jarry and they gave up the empty netters. So again, defense in front of him leading to majority of those goals. They were tap-in goals for the Red Wings. And then there's Saturday, where Mike Sullivan, I thought, wanted to make all 20 players walk home from St. Louis because none of them performed well. Okay, I'll take that back. Third line performed well, and Evgeny Malkin had a 5-minute, little glimpse of performing well in the first period. Other than that, nobody showed up against the St. Louis Blues, and part of that was also Tristan Jarry. It easily could have been more out of hand, though, because I thought, if you look at all 4 of these games, the game against the Blues was the one where Jarry was tested the most. He was given the most work to do against the Blues. We know why. I talked about it on Ice-Burgh Recap. You've seen Mike Sullivan talk about it. You've seen everybody talk about it over the past 2 days. Way too many odd man rushes. Way too many 2-on-1s, 3-on-1s on some occasions, and 3-on-2s pretty much throughout the entire evening. And yet, the Penguins were still somewhat in the game. You had the feeling like, okay, they could turn this around, whether that be because they almost did it from down 4-1 on Wednesday against the Red Wings, or just simply because they were, for the most part, controlling the pace of play in that game, and Tristan Jarry was standing on his head at moments, keeping them within 2 goals for the majority of that game. Now, he's still struggling to make the timely save, and that's where we are at in this chronology of his first 4 games. The 4th goal against St. Louis is something that he's done a couple times this season, and he's done throughout his career. He's given up a goal at the exact wrong time. And I don't know if that's something that can be fixed, but that is certainly something that the Penguins need him to fix going forward, because that's my biggest issue with Tristan Jarry so far. He can only hold the dam so long, and when he allows it to burst, it seems like it's just as the Penguins are closing in on whether, tying the game or getting back into the game or taking the lead. That's when he seems to just not be able to hold down the fort anymore. And again, it might be a timing thing, it might be happenstance, but that's my biggest issue with Tristan Jarry so far this season. But overall, I think the numbers don't tell the story correctly. I think his performance, eye test-wise, in my opinion, for the most part, has been that of a good goaltender. Not that of a Vezina caliber goaltender, because I don't think anybody's mistaking Tristan Jarry for somebody who should be competing for the Vezina this season, but certainly a goaltender that is more than capable of being the driving force behind a team being able to perform and make it to the postseason. It's going to be huge with this team now for him to be able to make the timely save. And that's something that I'm going to keep an eye on moving forward, because while yes, I would say he had 2 good games and 2 games that were bad, but again, not much help in front of him, I think you need to see him start to, at the very least, make that timely save. That's going to be the most important thing for him moving forward, because when you look defensively, they haven't given up a large quantity of opportunities, have the Pittsburgh Penguins. Currently, they're 5th in the NHL in expected goals allowed per 60 minutes. It's very good. They're 8th in the NHL in shots against per game. Again, good numbers defensively. The problem is while they're not giving up a large quantity of looks, when they do give looks up, they're pretty quality. Look at the Chicago game. In the third period, what 2 goals tied the game and eventually won the game for the Chicago Blackhawks? Goals right in front of Tristan Jarry on one-timers. Nobody contesting him. Nobody in front of the net to block the shot. And Jarry has to make the save moving left to right. And then you look at game against Red Wings. Where are those goals coming from? They're tap-ins. They're tap-ins because the defense is not able to stop the pass from going cross-crease. The defense isn't able to beat out their man in front of the net. There are opportunities like that. You look at St. Louis, 3-on-2, 2-on-1, all of this. We've talked about it ad nauseum at this point. But when you look at the quality looks, that's where you need Tristan Jarry to be at his best, because it's not going to be very many, right? Saturday was one game against the Blues. That's supposed to be the exception and not the rule when they give up that many quality looks. So when you look at the numbers, they haven't given up a lot of opportunities, but they've given up some pretty good opportunities. You need Tristan Jarry to be able to, when he is challenged, because it's not happening very often to start this season, but when he is challenged, you need him to stand up to the challenge. With that said, I know I said I'd talk about Alex Nedeljkovic a little bit. I'd like to see Nedeljkovic get a start this week. I'd kind of like to see Alex Nedeljkovic get multiple starts this week, and that's not due to Tristan Jarry's performance up to this point, but that's due to what you need to do if you're the Penguins to set this team up for success at that position throughout the remainder of the season. Maybe tomorrow you see Alex Nedeljkovic go up against the Dallas Stars, because the last time Nedeljkovic played in a game was 9 days ago against the Calgary Flames. It's the only game he's played in all season long. He had 34 saves on 36 shots. He looked really good. He got the win. And as of right now, he's in the good graces of everybody in Pittsburgh. But the Penguins have played 2 games in those past 9 days. You give them both to Jarry because you're not playing a lot of hockey. You need your starter to start to gain momentum early in the season. I get that. This week it changes. For the next 7 days after today, the Penguins play a game every other day. Their entire 4-game homestand is an every other day kind of thing. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and then the following Monday before a 4-day break while they head out on their California road trip. I would like to see Alex Nedeljkovic play 2 of those games. And to be completely honest, I'd like him to specifically play on Tuesday night against the Dallas Stars. Then I'd like to see him play against the Anaheim Ducks. I want to see more of Alex Nedeljkovic. I want to see if the Pittsburgh Penguins have a 1A, 1B situation, or if they have a steadfast starter backup combination. The Penguins need to figure that out. And I think Tristan Jarry would best be suited if it's a 1A, 1B. But you need to figure that out at this point of the season, because we all know the one main problem with the Pittsburgh Penguins and their goaltending situation was they over-relied on Tristan Jarry over the past couple of seasons. And when Casey DeSmith stepped in for him, he isn't able to handle the starter load. If everybody's worried about Tristan Jarry's health, it's best if you continue to get him on a decent workload and not use him as the workhorse. For that to happen, you have to know what you have. And Alex Nedeljkovic has played 1 game in 2 weeks. You got to get him some action here, especially as the season starts to ramp up and you start to play more games more frequently, so you know what you have going into that part of the schedule. But that's my thoughts 2 weeks in on the goaltending situation. I think Tristan Jarry's been okay, hasn't been stellar, but also hasn't been as bad as a lot of people are making it out to be. A lot of people like to look at the numbers and like to make their decisions solely based on that. That's not analyzing anything. You got to put together the numbers, what you've seen, and what is going on around that person. And I think that what's going on around Tristan Jarry is a lot of grade A opportunities. And I think that Tristan Jarry has handled it fairly well for the most part. Last 2 games might not say that, but I think in general it has. Also, again, I'd like to see more of Alex Nedeljkovic because he looked good in that 1 start. But that's going to do it for this episode of Ice-Burgh To Go. Thank you so much for tuning in. Remember, you can find us on YouTube at Inside the Penguins or anywhere you get your podcasts from.